My pregnant sister died in a car crash, so I adopted her baby. My jealous cousin tried to ruin everything, but my sister's secret diary changed our lives forever. I never thought I'd be in this situation. My name is Alice, 29F, and I've been married to Billy, 31M, for 5 years now. We have a wonderful 3-year-old daughter, Emma, who's the light of our lives. Billy and I met in college. He was the quiet, studious type who always had his nose in a book, while I was more outgoing, involved in various clubs and activities. Opposites really do attract, I guess. We started dating in our junior year and have been inseparable ever since. My younger sister Annie, 26F, and I have always been close despite our different personalities. She's the free spirit of the family, always chasing her dreams and living life to the fullest. That's how she met her husband, William, 20FM, 3 years ago. They were both volunteering at a local animal shelter when a mischievous puppy knocked Annie right into William's arms. It was like something out of a rom-com, and they've been madly in love ever since. Last year, Annie and William approached Billy and me with a huge request. They'd been trying to have a baby for years, but Annie had been diagnosed with endometriosis, which made it difficult for her to conceive. They asked if I would be their surrogate. I was taken aback at first. I remembered how tough my pregnancy with Emma had been. The morning sickness that lasted all day, the swollen ankles, the sleepless nights. But seeing the hope in Annie and William's eyes, I couldn't say no. We spent months going through all the necessary legal and medical procedures. It was a roller coaster of emotions, excitement, fear, anticipation. Finally, after 2 rounds of IVF, I became pregnant with their baby. The joy on Annie and William's faces when we got the positive test result is something I'll never forget. Everything was going smoothly for the first few months. Annie and William came to every doctor's appointment, their eyes shining with happiness each time we heard the baby's heartbeat. They were already planning the nursery, debating names, and dreaming about their future as parents. But then, about 5 months into the pregnancy, tragedy struck. Annie and William were driving home from a baby store, their car filled with tiny onesies and stuffed animals, when a drunk driver ran a red light and crashed into them. William died instantly, and Annie was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. I remember getting that phone call like it was yesterday. Billy and I were having a quiet dinner at home, Emma already tucked in bed, when my phone rang. It was my mom, her voice shaking as she told me what happened. I felt like the ground had disappeared from under my feet. The next few weeks were a blur of hospital visits and sleepless nights. Annie was in a coma, and the doctors weren't sure if she would ever wake up. When she finally did, after 3 agonizing weeks, we discovered she had suffered severe brain damage. The vibrant, free-spirited sister I knew was gone, replaced by someone who needed round-the-clock care and couldn't even recognize her own family. I was devastated, not just for Annie and William, but for the baby I was carrying. What would happen to this child who was so wanted and loved? Annie's parents, my Aunt Linda, 55F, and Uncle Robert, 57M, were now responsible for Annie's care and couldn't take on the responsibility of a newborn. William's parents had passed away years ago in a boating accident, leaving him an only child with no immediate family. After many long, tearful discussions with Billy, we decided to adopt the baby. It wasn't an easy decision, but we felt it was the best solution given the circumstances. We promised Linda and Robert that they would always be a part of the baby's life, that we would make sure the child knew about Annie and William and how much they had wanted and loved them. So, as the due date approached, I started planning for the baby's arrival. Despite the tragic circumstances, I wanted to celebrate this new life. I decided to organize a gender reveal party, mostly for Linda and Robert's sake. I thought it might bring them some joy during this incredibly difficult time. The party was last weekend. We had decorated our backyard with a mix of pink and blue balloons, and I had baked a cake that would reveal the baby's gender when cut. Linda and Robert arrived early, helping with the final preparations. I could see the mixture of grief and excitement in their eyes, and it broke my heart. Everything was going well until my cousin Rachel, 32F, showed up uninvited. Rachel and I have a complicated history. We were close as kids, but as we grew older, a rift formed between us. She always seemed jealous of my relationship with Annie, and over the years, she's caused her fair share of family drama. During the party, I overheard Rachel talking to Linda. She was saying things like, once Alice and Billy adopt the baby, you won't really be its grandparents anymore. It's sad that Annie and William will never get to be parents. This baby won't even know them. I saw Linda start to cry, and something in me snapped. All the stress, grief, and anger I'd been holding in for months came pouring out. I marched over to Rachel, my hands shaking with fury. "How dare you?" I hissed. "How dare you come here uninvited and say such cruel things? This is supposed to be a happy event, a celebration of the life Annie and William created. You have no right to be here, let alone upset Linda like this." Rachel tried to argue, saying she was just stating facts, but I wouldn't hear it. I grabbed her arm and practically dragged her to the door. "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Get out and don't come back." I slammed the door in her face, my heart pounding. When I turned around, I saw that most of the guests had witnessed the scene. Linda was still crying, being comforted by Robert. Billy was standing nearby, looking worried. I felt a wave of exhaustion wash over me, and I had to sit down. The rest of the party was subdued. We cut the cake. It's a boy. But the joyous atmosphere had been shattered by Rachel's cruel words and my outburst. As guests were leaving, many of them hugged me and whispered words of support, but I could see the shock in their eyes. Now, a few days later, Rachel's side of the family is blowing up my phone. They're saying I overreacted, that I should apologize to Rachel for embarrassing her. They're saying she was just being honest and that I'm too emotional because of the pregnancy. Some of them are even suggesting that maybe Rachel was right, that Linda and Robert won't really be the baby's grandparents once we adopt him. I don't think I did anything wrong. Rachel had no right to say those things to Linda, especially at what was supposed to be a happy event. But now there's a huge rift in the family, and I'm being blamed for it. Billy supports me, but I can see he's worried about the family drama. I keep replaying the scene in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently. But every time I think about Rachel's words and the look on Linda's face, I feel the anger rising again. This baby is a gift, a part of Annie and William that will live on. How dare Rachel try to taint that? Am I the asshole for kicking Rachel out and refusing to apologize? Should I have handled the situation differently? I'm lost and could use some outside perspective. Update 1. It's been about a month since my last post, and to say a lot has happened would be an understatement. First, I want to thank everyone for their support and advice. Your words helped me navigate this difficult situation and gave me the strength to stand my ground. After the gender reveal party incident, I decided to have a heart-to-heart with Linda and Robert. I wanted to reassure them about their place in the baby's life and address any concerns they might have had after Rachel's hurtful comments. We met at their house on a Sunday afternoon. The house was filled with memories of Annie. Her artwork on the walls, her collection of quirky mugs in the kitchen, her favorite throw blanket still draped over the couch. It was both comforting and heartbreaking. We had a long emotional conversation where I reaffirmed my promise that they would always be the baby's grandparents, regardless of the legal situation. I shared my plans to keep Annie and William's memory alive for the baby. Photo albums, yearly remembrance days, telling stories about their adventures and dreams. Linda and Robert listened with tears in their eyes, occasionally sharing their own ideas and memories. During this conversation, Linda revealed something that shocked me to my core. Apparently, Rachel had been pressuring them to contest the adoption. She had been filling their heads with ideas about how they should raise the baby instead of us, saying it's what Annie and William would have wanted. She even went as far as to suggest that Billy and I were trying to steal the baby from the family. I was furious but also heartbroken that Rachel would try to manipulate Linda and Robert during their time of grief. It explained why some family members had been acting strange around us lately, giving us suspicious looks or making odd comments about the adoption. After processing this information and discussing it with Billy, I decided to confront Rachel directly. I didn't want to do it over the phone or via text, where meanings can be misconstrued. So I invited her to meet me at a neutral location, a local cafe that Annie and I used to frequent. When Rachel arrived, I could see she was nervous. Her eyes darted around the cafe, avoiding my gaze. I took a deep breath and calmly explained how her actions were hurting the family, especially Linda and Robert. I told her about the conversation I had with them and how her interference was causing them additional stress during an already difficult time. I expected Rachel to be defensive, to argue or try to justify her actions, but to my surprise, she broke down crying. Between sobs, she confessed that she and her husband Mike, 33M, had been trying to conceive for years without success. They had gone through multiple rounds of IVF, all ending in heartbreak. Rachel admitted that her behavior stemmed from jealousy and grief over her own fertility struggles. As she spoke, I felt my anger slowly dissipate, replaced by a complex mix of emotions. I remembered how Annie had struggled with her infertility, the pain and hopelessness she felt. While I sympathized with Rachel's pain, I made it clear that it didn't excuse her actions. Her grief didn't give her the right to hurt others or try to manipulate the situation. We talked for hours, delving into years of family history and unresolved issues. Rachel confessed that she had always felt overshadowed by Annie and me, and that her infertility struggles had intensified those feelings. She saw the baby as her last chance to have a meaningful role in a child's life. After our talk, Rachel agreed to apologize to Linda and Robert. She also promised to stop interfering with the adoption process and to seek therapy to deal with her grief and jealousy in a healthier way. While I was glad we had this breakthrough, I'm still wary of her and plan to keep my distance for the foreseeable future. Trust, once broken, takes time to rebuild. On a happier note, Billy and I have started preparing the nursery for the baby. We're incorporating elements that honor Annie and William, like framed photos and meaningful keepsakes. We found an old dream catcher that Annie had made in high school and hung it over the crib. William's favorite childhood stuffed animal, a worn but well-loved teddy bear, sits in the rocking chair. Linda and Robert have been helping us with the nursery, which has been a healing experience for all of us. They brought over some of Annie's baby things: a soft yellow blanket, a silver rattle, a small book of lullabies. Each item carries a story, a piece of Annie's childhood that will pass on to her son. The baby is due in about 2 months, and despite all the drama, I'm excited to meet this little one. I can feel him moving and kicking, especially at night. Sometimes, when everything is quiet, I talk to him about Annie and William, telling him how much they wanted him and how loved he is. I just hope that the family tensions will continue to ease as we get closer to the birth. This child deserves to come into a world full of love and support, not family drama and conflict. We're all trying to heal and move forward, but it's a day-by-day process. For now, I'm focusing on staying healthy, preparing for the birth, and holding on to the hope that this baby will bring some light back into our lives after so much darkness. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since my last update, and things have taken an unexpected turn. The baby, a beautiful little boy we named Ethan William, arrived 2 weeks early. Despite the early arrival, the birth went smoothly, and Ethan is perfectly healthy. He has a full head of dark hair, just like William's and Annie's button nose. Holding him for the first time was an indescribable mix of joy and sorrow. Joy for this new life, and sorrow for Annie and William, who would never get to experience this moment. Billy was amazing throughout the labor and delivery, holding my hand and offering encouragement. Linda and Robert were in the waiting room, and I'll never forget the look on their faces when they held Ethan for the first time. It was like seeing a spark of life return to their eyes. However, the day after Ethan was born, we received some shocking news. Annie, who had been in a care facility since the accident, suddenly passed away. The doctor said it was due to complications from her injuries, a blood clot that they couldn't catch in time. We were all devastated, especially Linda and Robert. It felt like losing her all over again. In the midst of our grief, something unexpected happened. Rachel showed up at the hospital. At first, I was worried she would cause more drama, but she surprised us all. She came with a heartfelt apology and a gift for Ethan, a beautiful handmade quilt with patches representing different aspects of Annie and William's lives. She explained that our previous conversation had been a wake-up call for her, and she had started therapy to deal with her grief and jealousy. Rachel shared that she and Mikey had decided to start the adoption process themselves. She seemed genuinely happy for us and Ethan, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was seeing the cousin I grew up with, not the bitter woman she had become. The real shock came when Linda and Robert arrived at the hospital later that day. They brought with them Annie's old diary, which they had found while cleaning out her apartment. With shaking hands, Linda handed it to me, saying they had read it and felt I should see it too. In the diary, Annie had written about her fears of not being able to carry a baby and her immense gratitude towards me for being her surrogate. There were pages filled with her hopes and dreams for the baby, little notes about names she liked, and things she wanted to teach her child. But what struck me most were her words about the possibility of something happening to her and William. Annie had written that if she couldn't raise the baby, she wanted Billy and me to adopt and raise the child as our own. She trusted us completely and knew we would keep her and William's memory alive. She wrote about how she knew we would love the baby as much as she and William would have, and how comforted she felt knowing that if the worst happened, her child would be with us. Reading these words brought us all to tears, but it also provided a sense of closure and reassurance that we were honoring Annie's wishes. It felt like a final gift from Annie, her blessing for us to move forward with raising Ethan. And this discovery has helped ease some of the tension in the family. Even Rachel seems to have fully accepted the situation, although our relationship remains somewhat distant. We're focusing on healing and coming together as a family for Ethan's sake. We're now adjusting to life with newborn Ethan while also mourning Annie. It's a bittersweet time, filled with sleepless nights, diaper changes, and moments of both laughter and tears. Linda and Robert have been spending a lot of time with us and Ethan, which has been healing for all of us. They're naturals as grandparents, and seeing them with Ethan brings a smile to my face even on the hardest days. As for Billy and me, we're taking it one day at a time. Some days are harder than others, especially when Ethan does something that reminds us of Annie or William. But we're committed to raising him with all the love and care that Annie and William would have given him, while also making sure he knows about the amazing people his birth parents were. Ethan may have come into our lives in an unexpected way, but he's brought so much love and healing with him. We're not just raising Annie and William's son, we're raising our son. A beautiful blend of two families brought together by love, loss, and hope for the future. Update 3. It's been 6 months since Ethan was born, and I wanted to give a final update on our situation. Life has settled into a new normal, though it hasn't been without its challenges. Ethan is growing fast and is the light of our lives. He's started to smile and laugh, and those moments are precious beyond words. He has Annie's eyes and William's smile, which is both heartwarming and sometimes painful for all of us, especially Linda and Robert. We've kept our promise to keep Annie and William's memory alive. We have photos of them around the house and tell Ethan stories about them regularly, even though he's too young to understand right now. Emma has taken to her role as big sister with enthusiasm. She's always trying to make Ethan laugh and helps with diaper changes, which usually means creating more mess, but her heart's in the right place. Seeing them together makes me think of Annie and me as kids, and I hope they'll have the same close bond we did. Rachel has kept her distance, but in a respectful way. She sends gifts for Ethan on holidays and his monthly birthdays, but she doesn't try to insert herself into our lives. I appreciate that she's respecting our boundaries. From what I hear through family, she and Mike are in the final stages of adopting a little girl from overseas. I'm genuinely happy for them and hope this brings Rachel the peace and fulfillment she's been seeking. The most significant development came last month when Linda and Robert approached us with an idea. They want to start a charity in Annie and William's names, focusing on supporting families dealing with traumatic loss and helping with fertility treatments. They asked if we would be involved, and we agreed without hesitation. It feels like a positive way to honor Annie and William's memory and to help other families who might be going through similar struggles. We've started the process of setting up the foundation, and it's given all of us a new sense of purpose. Billy's been using his business skills to handle the legal and financial aspects, while I've been reaching out to support groups and medical professionals to build a network of resources. Linda and Robert have been sharing their story, which has already touched many hearts in our community. Last week, we had a small ceremony to scatter Annie's ashes. We chose a beautiful spot in the mountains where we used to go camping as kids. It was a private affair with just immediate family. Annie loved the outdoors, and as we watched the wind carry her ashes over the valley, it felt like we were finally letting her free. Afterwards, we all went back to our house for dinner. Seeing everyone together, supporting each other, and doting on Ethan made me realize how far we've come. There were moments of sadness, of course, but also laughter as we shared fond memories of Annie and William. This journey has been incredibly difficult, filled with loss and unexpected challenges, but it's also shown me the strength of family bonds and the capacity for healing. Ethan will grow up surrounded by love, knowing how wanted and cherished he is, not just by Billy and me, but by his grandparents and extended family. As for me, I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. The pregnancy and everything that followed took a toll on me, both physically and emotionally. I've started seeing a therapist to work through my feelings of grief and guilt. It's been helpful to have a space to voice my fears and doubts without worrying about burdening my family. Being Ethan's mom while also honoring my promise to Annie and William is a delicate balance, but it's one I'm committed to maintaining. Some days are harder than others. There are times when I look at Ethan and feel an overwhelming sense of loss for what could have been. But then he'll smile or laugh, and I'm reminded of the joy he brings to our lives. Our family may not look the way any of us expected, but it's ours, and it's full of love. Annie and William will always be a part of us, living on through Ethan and the memories we cherish. As we move forward, we carry them with us, honoring their love story by giving Ethan the life they dreamed of for him. The road ahead won't always be easy, but I'm hopeful for our future. We've weathered the storm together, and I believe we've come out stronger on the other side. Ethan's first birthday is approaching, and we're planning a celebration that will honor his birth parents, while also celebrating the joy he's brought into our lives. Life has a way of surprising you, of taking you down paths you never expected. Our path has been filled with both heartbreak and beauty. As I watch Ethan sleep in his crib, Annie's dream catcher swaying gently above him, I feel a sense of peace. We're going to be okay. More than okay, actually. We're going to thrive. For Ethan, for Annie and William, and for ourselves. And thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your kind words and advice have been a source of strength during the darkest times. While this will be my last update, know that your kindness has made a real difference in our lives. Here's to the future, whatever it may bring.